Hey guys, I hope you're doing great and welcome to another coding tutorial series. This time, as you can see, we are going to use the MFI. So the MFI is the money flow index, and you can compare it a little bit with the RSI. It's like the RSI on steroids, I would say. It's basically a calculation between the typical price. The typical price is high plus low plus close divided by 3. Then you combine it basically with the money flow. That's basically the volume, money coming in and going out. And you combine it as well with the money ratio. So that's basically the ratio between the positive and negative money coming into a market in a specific period. But this was just an easy explanation. You can see here what this indicator is doing, and it's basically telling us if something is a bit oversold or overbought. I will try to show you now how we want to create a signal from that. Okay, for example, here we have an overbought scenario, and we want to create a signal when the MFI is re-entering below 80. So for example, we can see here he broke out, then we waited until we had a close, again above 80, and then we created here like a sell signal. But what we are doing here is we are going to create a sell stop. We don't want to execute the market right away to avoid bad signals like that, for example. Here we go again. Here we have been again over 80, and we re-entered again with this candle. After this candle close, we entered again below 80, and then we made a sell stop here. And then, for example, sell stop was not triggered right away. It was triggered when the market moved down here. So that's basically how we want to create a signal. Same stuff here. We had, for example, re-entering like here with this candle. We made a buy stop was triggered, and it hit like take profit. Depends on how big our SL and take profit will be. So it's pretty basic. Always when we're re-entering, we create a buy or sell stop with an expiration. So that means basically after 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, we want to delete this buy stop because the signal is then not valid anymore. But you can test out what works best for you. Okay, great. So that's it from that side. Now let's move over to the meta editor. First of all, go to data, to new, create an expert advisor. We call it MFI, and here we go. Now, the first thing we want to do is to include, as always, our library. Here we go. The next thing we are going to do is we want to create our variables. So let's start with stop loss. Next thing is a take profit. And then the next thing we want to define is the MFI period. Period always mean how many candles does the MFI should use for the calculation. So the next thing we need is the MFI period. That's basically how many candles the MFI should look for. Normally, standard period is 14, so we will go with that. Next thing is the lot size. Let's go with 1 lot. Then we need the expiration. That's basically how long do we want that a buy or sell stop is sticking in the markets. So I would go with 1 hour for the moment. And as always, date is expressed in seconds, so 3600 seconds is 1 hour. And last but not least is the distance to the current close price. So where do we want to put the buy or sell stop? I will show it to you again. We said to prevent false signals, we want to create under the close a sell stop, for example here. And then we may want it to place it not exactly at the close, but a few pips above to make sure it doesn't get triggered instantly. The market has to break this again in order to place this trade. So let's call that order distance. Order dist. That's great. Equals 2 pips. Now let's go with maybe 3 pips. Okay. Now let's create a method which is returning the MFI value. The method should return a double. Let's call it getMFI. Here we go. And let's give it the input shift. So shift always means how many candles back do we want to look for. If you look at the chart, we can see, for example, if we type in shift 0, we get this candle. If we type in shift 1, we get the value from this candle, shift 2 from this candle. So if we type in shift 2, we get the MFI from this candle. Then let's return the value from the MFI. For symbol, we use just symbol. For the time frame, we use the current time frame. We can call it by period. Next thing is the MFI period, and that's in our inputs. The variables we can define when we insert the software, and next thing is the shift, and we use this shift here. Okay, that's it from that method. Let's click Control, comma to align everything. Click on compile. No error so far. Great. Let's move on with the next method. Okay, let's go with the sell signal. Let's call this bool. We want to return true or false. If we return true, the trade can be executed. If we return false, the trade cannot be executed. I will now write the condition and explain you later exactly how I managed to do that. Okay, here we go. So this one is pretty easy. Okay, as we can see, for a sell signal, that's this case here. Okay, after this close, for example, literally after every close we look for that, but after this close, we are here, right? This candle closed, so this candle started to create. Then we are here. That means we now look 2 candles back, that's this one, and we checked if this one is greater than 80. In that case, the MFI was greater than 80. Then we are still here. Now we look 1 candle back. You can see that here. That's this candle. And we look if we re-entered below 80. And yeah, we did so. As you can see here, the value was something like 77. So we have been smaller than 80. And therefore we return true. That would mean exactly on this candle open, we placed a sell stop here. This sell stop then unfortunately got not triggered. A little bit later, we got again over 80 and then below 80. And here we triggered again a sell signal. This time it was then executed here along the way. So pretty easy and straightforward. Now let's copy this method. Let's call it get buy signal. And the only thing we need to do is we need to change that and change that to 20. Here we go. Now we have the opposite signal. So that means we had a value below 20 and the next candle had a value over 20 and then we entered the market. Okay, insane easy and straightforward. Next thing is we need the isTradeOpen function. We've written that a lot of times, so I will just copy it here. Again, pretty easy. We just make an if condition. We ask for orders total. If that's equals 0, then we return false. Otherwise, we return true. So if we return true, we have a trade open. If we return false, we have no trades open. Amazing. Now let's write another function. And that's a function where we want to calculate pips into price data, because we want to type in pips here, 10 pips a sell, 10 pips takes profit. But 10 pips, for example, on Euro USD would be 0.001. So we have to make sure that this gets calculated correctly. Therefore, let's write a method. It's called double. Let's call it get pips to price. Amazing. Now here we want to give this function the value pips. So whenever we call it with the amount of pips, we want to get back the exact price data. Okay, again, very easy. Turn the value pips times market info from the current symbol mode point. So what is that exactly? If we ask for that information, we get in return, for example, on Euro USD, the value 0.00001, because that's 1 point in that market. So that means, for example, if we now calculate that with 20 pips, then 20 times that would be 0.0002. But that's wrong. That's now the value in points. The only thing we have to do now is to do now times 10. Here we go. Now we have the pip value. Now, if we use the software on Euro JPY, we get, for example, here the value back 0.001, because Euro JPY is that a point. And that will mean with this calling function, we always get the correct value for our pips. Perfect. Now let's compile it and hope for no errors. Amazing. Control I to align everything, and we are good to go. Now let's write the logic. Okay, void logic. It's a void because we have no return value. We just want to trigger that. Okay, so if there's a new candle, we can just call that. In my library, we have already written this function. So now this condition will only get triggered when we have a new candle. So literally after every candle close. If that equals true and is trade open equals false, and then let's open the brackets. Amazing. Now, next thing we are going to do, going to align everything. Now we start with the if condition. If we have a sell signal, get sell signal, if that's equals true. By the way, you can also write it like that. That will mean if this returns true, we go in this condition, and if it returns false, we stay outside of this condition. But for easier reading, I will do it like that. Okay, let's open the brackets again. Now the first thing we are going to do is to calculate the entry point. Let's call that entry. Okay, what we do here now is we need the current price when the candle opened. Then we do it minus get pips to price. How was it called? Order dist. Okay, great. Perfect. Again, just to repeat that, bid is the current open price of the candle, and we want to place a sell stop a little bit under this price level to avoid false signals. Then next thing we are going to do is to make an order. This time let's do it with order sent. Okay, current symbol, great. Next thing is what type of operation, and that's called operation sell stop. Here we go. Next thing is the volume. We go with lot size. And then the next thing would be the entry price, entry. Then next thing is slippage. Let's go for 20. Now we want the stop loss. Here we have to calculate a little bit. So our stop loss should be entry plus get pips to price from SL. Okay, perfect. That's now our stop loss. So we have basically, for example, here the entry point, and our stop loss should be higher. Therefore, plus get pips to price, SL, and then we get the value like here, for example. So it's higher than the entry point. Okay, great. Next thing is the take profit. And that's basically entry minus get pips to price, take profit, and that's it. Now, next thing is the comment. We don't need any comment on this order. Next thing is the magic number. We can also skip that. Magic number, for example, is if you want to distinguish between different operations from different expert advisors. So if you have multiple expert advisors running on one account, so in order that the expert advisor can find out which was his position and which not, you can do that by the magic number. So your first EA is running with the number 1, your second EA with number 2, and so on. We go with 0, that's fine. Then expiration time is basically the current time current, plus the expiration. How was it called? Yeah, like that. And then last thing is the color for the error. None, that's fine. We can keep it like that. And here we go. Now let's click on Control comma to align everything. Let's check if there are no errors. Amazing, no errors. Then we can basically just copy this. We can call this one now else if, because if the sell signal gets triggered, there's no chance a buy signal will get triggered at the same time. Therefore, we can call it else if. So he can skip that if he entered here. So you make your EA faster, but we can also do it like this. But to make it faster, we'll write it like that. Then we have to check now for a buy signal. And then the entry point is this time plus, because we want to have a buy stop a bit higher. And then we change that here to buy stop. Lot size is great, entry is great, slippage is great. Now we have to change that and that, and that's it. Now let's compile it. No errors, Control I to align everything, perfect. Now we just have to trigger the logic every tick. That's what we'll do right now, and that's basically it. Now let's move on to the MetaTrader to check if the software is running correctly. Then let's choose, where is it? MFI, great. Let's go for visual mode so we can check it first. Date is great. Let's go with 10 MFI period, we will keep that. Then for the expiration, we go with 1 hour, that's also fine. And for the distance, let's go with 2. And here we go. Okay, now let's check if it works. There's one more thing I forgot, is let's delete this indicator. Volume should be deleted. Perfect. Now let's create a new template. This template is called tester. Override that, and now if we start the test, we should see this indicator in here. Amazing. Let's move on and see for the first trade. Okay, looks great so far. We can see we had here our first operation. We had here a value below 20. We had after this close a value higher than 20. So we opened here buy stop got triggered, and it went into take profit. Great. Here we go. We had a sell. Yes, looks great. Over 80. After this candle, we were below 80. Then we created a sell stop and we triggered it, but it unfortunately got into the sell. Here we had again a signal and it was a take profit. One more thing, for example, instead of entering like a few pips under the close, we could also enter like under the low of this candle, for example. We could change that like that for the entry. Instead of going with the current bid price on the sell signal, we call the I low. From the symbol, time frame is period, that's the current one, and for the shift, we go 1 candle back. And then we would get this price minus the distance pips we have. But yeah, in this case, we will stick to the bid price. Here we go. Okay, back to the MetaTrader. Everything looks perfect. There are no errors. So let's make a quick test. Yeah, great settings. Here we go. Let's test this for a few months. So keep in mind, this is not good testing quality. It's the basic MT4 quality. I have also a video how you can get like 99.9% modeling quality, but I talk about that in another video. And here we go. If we go to diagram, amazing. We see already profits, perfect. Let's go here and try something I do like more, and that's small stop loss, higher take profit. Yeah, let's give it a go. You will see we have a bit more drawdown because we will have now a lot less chance to win the trade, but with one trade we can recover a lot of losses. And here we go. Yeah, again, this was profitable. It doesn't look that nice, but yeah, that's a machine. So if you would trade, you would instantly stop trading this way, but the machine is just continuing all the time. And as we can see, it had a drawdown of 12%, but it made a profit of 22%. So yeah, that's the thing. That's why I love data and machines. They just stick to their rules. And yeah, that's basically it from that episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you could learn something from it. And if so, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and give me a like. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you, guys.